Let's talk about soul contracts. Yeah, soul contracts. Good stuff, man. But like all, so many topics out there, a little misunderstood and a little misrepresented. So let's talk about soul contracts. How are they made? How are they broken? Can they be broken? What do we do, with soul contracts? And what are they? Incidentally, what are they? So there's a lot of talk. It's every so often there's like a wave of energy going towards a particular theme and another theme here and there. And some are just easy to catch on and become popular, especially the more romanticized they are. They become a little more popular. It's easy to make more popular. But some things that are important to understand. Soul contracts, first of all, can be made before you come to Earth, and they can be made once you're on Earth. One of the unfortunate things about soul contracts, though, is that they can be made consciously or unconsciously, but guess which one is mostly the case? Yeah, they're almost always made unconsciously. It's kind of a bummer, but it's the way it is. Unconsciously, you can say, well, that's because they're made before we come to Earth. It's kind of hidden, and it's not remembered. The reason most soul contracts are made unconsciously is because most of them are absolutely nutty. That nobody wants to remember that they made those contracts. It's convenience. It's like convenient amnesia. And you can't actually say, well, I'm going to negate this contract because I don't remember making it. It just doesn't work that way. The contract's been made. It's made on a soul level. Sometimes they're made based on vows. Contracts it's like any other contract. There's the paperwork, there's the sentence, and you sign it. Do you agree to? Yes. Here's a contract for renting this house. Do you agree to 6-month rental minimum? Yes. And you agree to give 30 days notice? Yeah, you're signing. It's the same thing when we're making contracts, soul level contracts. We call them soul contracts because only your soul remembers doing them. More or less, that's why they're called soul contracts. Only one of us remembers, and I don't even remember it, the soul, so it's really buried. But soul contracts very much include things we call vows. Human vows, I do. They say in the English language, that's the shortest sentence and the longest sentence. Hey! So, that's what I've heard. But it's true. When you say I do, there's a vow. When you say I will never leave you, there's a vow. Now some people start to go, I don't like this talk. This guy's, a jerk, he can't be right. It's right. Just bear with me. All of these things we say. I vow I'll never leave you. I'll protect you till the end of time. These are all vows. There's vows of poverty some of us have taken. Nuns and priests in other lifetimes. There's vows we've said, I'll never do this again. The more solid the vow is going to be based on how intense you were when you made that vow. If you were kind of taking it lightly in your mind, it's lightly made. And he's more easily dispersed. But some of us made vows, man, and they were life and death vows. Vows to friendship. Man, I'm going to be faithful in this friendship forever. This is such a great friendship. And so quickly and easily people can turn on those things. And they think, doesn't matter. I'm just, I'm no longer supporting this spiritual teacher. I no longer choose to take care of my kids because I don't like their mother or father. So I'm just going to not take care of them financially. I've known some parents that do that. They're the provider and then they split, no financial care. You're not done. You're not done. You know dang well on some unconscious level you have a vow there that those are your kids and you walk away. You're not done. Those things are sitting there somewhere. Someone's going to call them due. Now what's really nice is even if you do that to your children, let's say, they can actually be done with it. And you're not, because you still made a vow. Your children they can say, well, we just expect that because that person's not a really nice person, no integrity, and they're done with you. They don't have to come back and relive it with somebody. You, if you let them down, you would still have to come back with someone else's kids or whatever to work that out because you've made an agreement. Some of you know the concept of be impeccable with your word. Some of you know about agreements. Vows, agreements, they're all the same. Contracts, they're all the same. And they get called due. They can be large contracts or small. Small contract would be like, yes, we definitely have to do dinner. God, yeah, absolutely. I'm going to call you next week and then not do it. Those I call leaks. All unfulfilled contracts are leaks in energy. Where do you think those leaks are going to pop up? Right here. Those leaks are not going to affect your tree in your backyard. They're going to affect you. And how many leaks do you have? So sometimes our energy feeling drained, not always, I'm saying some of our exhaustions in life, mental, physical exhaustions and so forth, even financial sometimes, they're leaks. Look at your life and say, where do I have leaks? Meaning money that's going out that's not serving anything. I don't know if you know this, but most of you could call your local utility companies and get a reduction in your rates. That just sounded like a commercial, didn't it? But people don't realize it. So it's only $100 maybe for your utility. You can call them and tell them, you know, if it's true. I mean, try to be sincere about this. But if you're struggling, I'm struggling and I needed reduction. I could go without cable or whatever it is. They're going to drop it to half that, perhaps. Now you can say, well, it's not that much. Why not? Just do it anyway. It's a leak. Where are you losing money? Where are you where are you spending that you don't need to? Doesn't hurt to wrap those things up. One time, many years ago, I had when I was married, I think it was when I was married or shortly after, I didn't take care of the budgeting and all that kind of thing. I just, didn't do that part. And one day, it came across my desk somehow, the expenditures, and I looked at something and I thought, what is that, I wonder? And it was something where my wife at the time, God bless her, she had different kinds of frailties. And one of them was, just people, they would call and try to sell her something, and she just didn't have an ability to deal with that kind of pressure. They call and said, if you just do this, we'll send you this automatically. After 2 months, you can cancel. She never thought about it. Her brain didn't work that way. She never canceled. So there was something that I was being billed for forever and a day. And I looked at it and I said, what's this? She said, I don't remember. And we talked about it more. And I think at some point she might have said, that might have been a call that was made. And I just stopped. And I called them. You're going to take this off and refund me the 2 years that we've been getting billed for it, which was like $100 a month. And if you have any issue with it whatsoever, consider this. This is a person who has legal mental handicaps that you're not refunding. And I don't know if everybody would be happy about that. Because they were like, no, really? And I told them the truth. Somebody signed on to this that has some issues, and it's not okay to take advantage of that. And they gave me the refund. There are leaks. I didn't even know about that, but it was a leak. I'm not talking about being a jerk and trying to save every chintz on every penny. I'm just saying, wherever you have leaks, including, hey, let's do lunch. You're not going to do lunch. You're not going to do dinner. Well, I might. You've been telling them for 8 years. At some point, just own it and say, you know what? I'm really sorry. I keep saying yes, but it's not happening. So let's let it go until it does. That's a leak. But it's also a small version of a contract. Stop saying yes to things you're not going to do because you're signing contracts without realizing it. Be impeccable with your word. Be clear. Be clear as possible. And there are, larger contracts that we made when we came to this earth, like when you're going to die, would be a bigger contract as opposed to, say, dinner. Sometimes you can do both at the same time, but, some contracts are more mutable than others. Some are more flexible, and some are a little more, set in stone. I've always described it as being like you're going on a trip. Let's say a coast-to-coast bus ride. You're going to go from point A to point B or Z. You're going to go from point A to point Z. That's the contract. I'm going to San Diego from, whatever it is, New York, and I'm going to get there. Fine. I bought my ticket. I have my contract. I'm going. Now, how many times you get off the bus during stops, who you talk to, a lot of that's flexible. Some of the contracts are more solid than others. You're going here to here. How many times you get married could be part of your contracts. Sometimes some of those were very mutable at the time because the contract was you're going to decide whether you want to be healthy or not. Healthy could mean marry this person or marry that one. It could be the opposite. So some things are totally subject to choices in the moment. And, again, just because we don't remember doing any of this doesn't mean they're not there. These contracts aren't there. So you can have a contract that's part of a friendship. Like you can have a contract with somebody. Hey, I'll tell you what. Let's go and we're going to be friends. The general term soul mates means soul friends. Okay? Don't romanticize it. Soulmates. We're buddies. Some of your soulmates are people that you've been in athletics with in another life, and you're back and you're on a volleyball team in high school. But you don't remember. That doesn't matter. You're not meeting strangers. Typically, they're sets of people that you're redoing things with. Some much tighter than others. How do you know how tight they are? Where they were in other lifetimes? However tight they are now. You'll know how many vows you have by looking at your life now and how intensely connected you feel to somebody. Some people don't want to admit they might feel tighter to one of their children than another. That's not bad. All it's doing is telling you where you've been. I probably have known this one more than that one. I mean, one of my children, I very vividly know that I lost them in another lifetime. Makes me a little more susceptible to when they're challenged and feeling emotionally scared for them, let's call it. But that's not now. See, you learn to do that. You learn to recognize instead of, oh my God, I got to bail this kid out all the time. No, wait. That's not today. You lost them once, and now you have vows to never lose them again. So you're going so far, you're enabling. Is that making sense? Same with partners. I could have had a partnership in another life, totally betrayed my partner, vowed to never cause such harm again, get together with somebody this lifetime that I shouldn't be with, but vow to never leave them. Not knowing that that's what I'm doing. It's important to say, wait, no, that's just the insane part of me. I don't have to actually do this. That's just me trying to compensate for another time when I felt bad. Carrying guilt isn't doing anybody any good. If I were your partner and you said, I'm going to stay with you even if I don't want to, out of guilt from another lifetime, I wouldn't go, I do. Yeah, this sounds really empowering. It's not easy to say goodbye to these kinds of things, but it's healthy to do so. So, soul contracts can be like our soulmate friends. Let's do this again. Hey, I'm going in. I heard, hey, you're going in. I'll see you there. Remember last time we were, let's do that again. You might come back on a soccer team with somebody that you used to be in a military campaign with. There's a feeling, there's a camaraderie. Could be friends and buddies from another lifetime, and in this lifetime you guys write poetry together. But you've done this before. All you have to do is look at what you're doing now, and you'll know that likely you've done something like it before. How do I know which people? Because that's what you're probably doing now. The ones that seem uniquely tight, just like people watching. Michael Mirdad as opposed to whomever out there. It's not just the subject matter. When we feel an affinity, we've known each other before. We've worked at the deepest levels. If you want a shallow teacher, that's probably where you're coming from. Maybe the subjects are new to you, so you need a shallow teacher you feel an affinity to. Maybe you knew them before. Another lifetime, they were not the deepest. They were just somebody you enjoyed listening to. They were Captain Kangaroo in another life with you. Whatever. Something just mundane and simple and nice. But if you're going to feel a calling towards something like, call it Christ consciousness, it's not likely that's new to you because that's too deep of a thing. You must have had tastes of it before and feel a deeper calling. Some people actually pursue certain religions. And they think, I just think this is the best religion. You're not pursuing these things by accident. These are things you have already done before, so they're familiar. You think you're picking the best religion or the best philosophy or the best author. They're just things that are familiar to you. They're just convenient. So, so soul contracts can sometimes be, hey, I'm going in and I want to really make a difference. I'm going to use music to get a message across. And the other person says, well, you know, you and I have done music together many times. And I'd love to go and meet you there and we'll do something. Let's launch something like Bernie Taupin and Elton John. Bernie Taupin was an incredible lyricist. Like, in my opinion, even with all the kudos, he'll never have enough because people don't know how to quite go to the non-singing popular name and credit it. Because it's otherworldly how amazing the specificity of the details in each song. They're not like just casual or general lyrics. There's some really, really tight words there. And Elton John can look at the guy's lyrics and he actually hears a melody for it. He doesn't contrive it. He can hear the melody in a song by looking at the lyrics. They'll sing to him. So it would come naturally to him. But it wouldn't have happened as easily, despite him having that gift, had he not met a twin soul. Not a romantic soulmate, but a twin soul, because twin souls are usually here as twins making an agreement to work together, do something profound together. It's not always going to be globally profound, but it's profound to them, like a Lennon and McCartney. So we have those kinds of things, twin soul kinds of contracts. You know, and just because you connect with somebody doesn't mean you're always supposed to pursue it. That's one of those human foibles again. I feel such a connection. We finish each other's sentences and wow, this is absolutely meant to be. You could be finishing each other's sentence because you were in prison in another lifetime and you just got to know each other. Think it through, man. Think it through. Don't run on compulsions the way humans do. Check it out. Is this spiritual based or is it human based? And if it's human based, let it go, man. Just, you know, maybe rethink it or something. But to know and to kind of deal with soul contracts, here's some suggestions for you. You might want to ask yourself, if I have a relationship that might feel like a soul contract, not just a partnership, any kind of connection, you know, or an event in your life, was that a soul contract that I did that? More important than labeling it soul contract, ask yourself, if there's anything about it you would like to change, you would have changed. Is there anything about it you would have preferred changing? Having a different outcome, having a different situation, or whatever the case may be. If you can say, you know, no, I can see where it, I'm not saying you call it good. I'm saying, would you change it? In my household as a kid, it wasn't really a supportive, loving kind of a scenario. Now, would I change that? If you, one of those, there's people out there that say, I wouldn't change a thing. Be careful, because you just made another contract. Now you're likely to have it happen again. That doesn't mean I'm telling you to quickly say, I would rather change everything, because that reaction could tell us you're going to recreate it, because it's a problem. Just learn to say, what do I get from this? And with my family, it's very easy. One way to check in whether you're done with something. You get a button. If I could push this button, would I do this again? Now, given the particular lessons I came in with, if I push this button, would I choose this family again? The family was very distant from me. I wasn't included. You know, I was kind of thought to be like, even my brothers would say, yeah, somebody left him on the doorstep. You know, they told the neighbors, you know. He's not really one of us. He's, you know. Now, as a kid, that hurt. But would I do that again? Not, this is just an idealistic concept here. It's made up, because no, I'd rather not even bother with that kind of thing again. But given the same situation, could I understand why it worked? It worked great. You know why? Because now I'm not caught up in that. Their treatment of me helped me recognize I don't need that. As a kid, I would have loved to have been accepted in their family unit. And now that would not have worked at all, because they still all live next door to each other. And I went on with my life. I'm the only person that ever moved. Yeah. I'm the only person that ever left that tract of, they're all like 5 houses from each other. I'm the only one that ever left. I would not be here teaching. So, Michael, if God said right now, there's a time warp, and you can go back and fix it and become part of them, or what you're doing today. Yeah, I would say, let's do with what today. And he might even say, but I'm not going to let you know that. You're still going to cry as a kid. You're still going to wonder, I'll still accept it. Now, when we can look at our lives and say, I may not have liked what happened, but would I choose to repeat it? Whichever you choose, I would or wouldn't, what matters is what's happening in here. Because if you say I would or wouldn't and you have resentment, you're going to do it anyway. If you feel done, not because I'm done with you, I hate you, it's I'm done, I feel complete, I got it, then you're likely not going to have to recreate that. Especially when you look at things in your life and say, man, this is insane. Why did I do that? It's sort of like, did you get what you needed to get? Did you learn what you needed? Are you feeling done? And not from an emotional place. Do you feel done? It feels complete. How so? Ask yourself. Because whatever it was, like in my situation, could you say clearly, sincerely, I got the message? For example, I can see where that family, somebody out here could say, I could see where that partnership of that family really fit when I had low self-worth. Who did they just speak about? Themselves. That's when you know you're more likely done. When you speak about them more than yourself, you're probably not done. And that would mean, unconsciously, you're signing new contracts. I would never want to be with a jerk like that. 3 months from now, the soul is like, 3 months from now, one exactly like them. Wait, more, even more. Because the more it gets magnified, the soul is hoping we'll get it. So, it seems like we have to turn up the fire a little more. Let's make this even more intense so that they get it this time. So, on the other hand, that's how you can sort of eliminate the need for such contracts. But if you hear people saying, oh, there's a ritual you can do. Om Mani Padme cord cut. If I were you, I wouldn't believe that. You're not going to have just a quick, some sort of ritual or a statement you make. You have to heal. You have to feel complete to make the contracts complete. You have to complete it. How? Well, this is tricky. When I talk about leaks, there's a DVD, it might be Starting a New Life or something like that, where one of the talks is about leaks. I highly recommend it. But leaks, when people talk about leaks, it's like you can patch leaks in one of two ways, guys. People think there's only one way, but how do you patch leaks? You go and make a bucket list and check things off when you've done them. No. Once again, a popular concept that is incorrect. The way you patch leaks is either do them or don't do them. But when you say I'm not going to do them, you're accepting the death of those things. Either way, it's an acceptance. I'm going to do it or I'm not going to do it. And either one, when you completely accept it that you've done or don't do, it is done. When you say, but I'm going to, you've just created another contract. Or, in this case, leaks. And that energy's going somewhere. And you don't realize it. Leaking energy into all the things you wish you had done, wish you hadn't done. It's all leaks. Clean it, clean it. Cut all the cords is another word for it, but cut the cords, patch the leaks. Mostly, how do I heal contracts? Forgiveness. It comes back to forgiveness. Forgiveness is partly contingent on my ability to stop blaming and recognize my own lessons and be done. Hey, guess what? I get to retire myself from this situation. And I get to retire everyone else. So you can't really break contracts with people if you're still holding on to stuff. Then it's just a fake ritual. Oh, everybody stand on one foot because, some aliens told me this is how it's done. Stand on one foot. This was channeled just yesterday, and breathe only into one nostril and light an incense in one hand and think about the person and say, done with you, They come up with these cool or complicated or sexy kind of rituals. And then, a year later, the person's having a session with me, Michael, I thought I was done with this. And I'm like, because people are wanting so badly to be done with them, but they just don't know how. Forgiveness is the only real way to end contracts. And forgiveness is contingent on responsibility. So it's also safe and true to say responsibility is one of the main ways to release contracts. You can't say just done. It's are you done? If you still think about them in a hurtful, resentful way, you're not done. I know that the hurt's there. Nobody's wronging you for being hurt when somebody's messed you up like that. But we have to learn to come to, people cannot enter your airspace without a contract. Okay? Think of yourself like a military base. People come flying in and they come soaring, they walk in, they drive in, they come up, they get to the gates. Do you have your papers? People can't accidentally enter your airspace. Your soul's going to say, do you have your paperwork? Yep. They're going to be like, oh, you're kidding. They sign this? All right. Entrez-vous. And the person enters, and it could be love and it could be hurt. But whatever's there, guys, they can't enter without an agreement. And some people don't understand these things, and they go out there and they spout and they teach about soul contracts, but they really don't understand it. So that's why they're out there selling you on how to end soul contracts. And then some of them never even get around to telling you, but the ones that do, their methods are not right. Almost none of them are going to say the word forgiveness. And it's the only way it's done. Without forgiveness, you can't bring closure to anything. And you can't reach forgiveness without responsibility. So there you are. I have to own what's happening in my life. I have to say, and also stop making new contracts, for God's sakes. But I'll get back to that in a second. So, people are going to say, this is another popular notion, the reason you have soul contracts is because there were lessons you needed to learn, which really makes sense. There were lessons you needed to learn, and we're doing a workshop on soul contracts, and I'm recommending all of you, write down what you needed to learn. I needed to learn to not be with people like that, and I needed to learn to have more strength to say no to people, and so, which sounds pretty good. But what they're going to say is, you make soul contracts because of lessons you needed to learn. Now listen carefully. That makes sense. It's very logical. But it is not rational, because it affirms that you actually have lessons to learn. There is one law greater than contracts, the truth of God. And in the truth of God, you have nothing you needed to learn. You just think you did. So my contracts are being made not by my sane self that knows that I am made in God's image. My contracts are being made by my vulnerable, kind of broken, uncertain self. Out of my uncertainty of who I am, I'm more susceptible to needing contracts. You get what I'm saying? Because I think I needed to learn something. So it's BS when people are selling you on this. You make contracts because you needed to learn lessons. Really? I know humanly that's true. And then I'm dragged into the human courts, literally or figuratively, over this. Partners, but you vowed to be, so psychically they're like, I'm not letting you go. You vowed to enable me forever. And you're going, God, psychically, it's true. So guys, what do you do? If psychically you know that they're telling the truth, that you're hooked, they've got you. And then they'll past life, psychically they're showing you past life records you signed, agreements. You vowed you would never do this. You vowed you'd always do that. You know what happens? You start to feel guilted and shamed. Okay, I'll stay, or whatever the case may be. It could be a job or whatever the contract is. all right, fine. And we acquiesce. What you're supposed to do is plead insanity. If I made a contract to do something that feels this horrendous to me, it could not have been because I was aware of my God self. It had to have been where I was losing awareness of my true self, and then I acquiesced. I mean, Michael, I can say this. When I was a kid and I was ready to move out of Southern California where I was living, early 80s, this was probably around 1982, I went to a place called Sedona. And I had my newborn kind of 6 months or so old, and my wife at the time, and went to this place, Sedona, and said, I'd like to live here. So this is one of those optionals. It's a free will choice. I came here and I looked around and I thought, I like the energy. I want to be here. I think I'm going to move here somehow. And I talked to a school that was here at the time. This is how weird things can be. I went and talked to a school because I knew how to be an assistant teacher. Just however I got that. But and I thought I can maybe find a part-time job and do my spiritual teaching too. I'll do a part-time job at a school of some kind and maybe help teach. And so I went to some school, knocked on the door, met the owner, and I can do it, an assistant teacher. She said, you have such a nice energy. I'd like to hire you. It's great. Met with this healer and this doctor in town, and he said, yeah, you seem to know your stuff about healing arts. I'd like to hire you. So I'm set. I think that school is across the street. Now, it's that one there. Okay? Yeah. But I don't think it was the same owner because this is a long time ago. But it was the school that's now across the street from Unity, strangely enough. And I came here looking around, and nailed it down, 2 jobs. However, a friend of mine said, hey, I'm moving too. What a coincidence. I'm moving to the Northwest. Oregon, Southern Oregon. And I said, okay, I'll join you. We'll go to Southern Oregon instead. And I did. Oregon was okay. I taught and so forth, but for the most part, didn't like it. And here's what's important about it. I went to Oregon because I was too afraid to move someplace on my own. You get it? That was free will. I ended up someplace that I didn't like much. I thought it was going to be all lush and green and everything, clear-cut mountains. The heat was just as much as it was in Southern California. It was not a great decision, but I made that decision, and I know why I made it. I was a kid, and I felt more secure going with another guy, another buddy, to kind of support each other in it. That was a choice out of weakness. Can I own it? Psh, absolutely. And I vow to never... No, I'm kidding. So I recommend you own. It's not a horrendous thing. It's not a bad thing. As a kid, and I know dang well, it was too scary for me. So within a year or two, I moved back to Southern California. That was not a coincidence, because I needed to do it over again. When I did it over again, I moved to Washington State, and I loved it, because it wasn't made from that original mind of fear. Strangely enough, eventually I'm asked to come and work as a spiritual leader in a place called Sedona. So the longer term contract of coming to Sedona was there. I chose when. I could have done it in 82, and instead it was 2010. We take longer than we need sometimes, but there you have it. So look at your own life. You got off the bus. You went in the store and you didn't have to. It's no big deal. I got off the bus, I didn't get off the bus. I stayed on the bus. I got off and went in the store and got some groceries. Other times I didn't. They're all the bus ride from coast to coast with free will decisions all along the way. So positive contracts, you'll know them because they're things you're looking forward to. Positive contracts, you'll know them because gifting relationships are positive contracts. Gifting relationships means loving, supportive, centered in spirit. Don't wrong or make bad other kinds of relations. I'm just making the distinction. There's gifting relationships and there's karmic relationships. Karmic relationships are mostly, this is all in the relationships book of mine, but karmic relationships are mostly lessons. They're not gifts and gifts. And sure, for a few years they might have the roses to them because that's how, that's how they get the contract solidified. But once there, man, heavy, lessons and lessons and lessons, challenging stuff. But positive, soul contracts, the positives are going to feel like gifting relationships. And the one bummer about that is we often take them for granted. So don't. If you have a gifting relationship, whether it's the spiritual teacher you have, the center you have, whether it's the car you have that works really well, somebody gifted it, gave it to you, whatever things you have that feel like they're gifts, that with that thing, a relationship, a thing, a house, whatever, the town you live in, if it feels like it's a gifting thing, it's giving you a reflection of light and love, don't stop giving thanks for it. Not because you're afraid of it going away, because you're so thankful and the gratitude is there. Those are gifting things and those are positive soul contracts. One day, positive or negative, they do not exist. So at some point, release all contracts. But positive contracts, that's a brief summary of them. Negative contracts, they're going to feel like karmic relationships. They're going to feel like things related to regret or guilt or shame. Those are going to be negative contracts. Obviously, things you wish you hadn't done or wish you weren't doing. All negative contracts. But they're like legal contracts. Psychically, people are going to, take you to court and sue you for trying to break them. And if you don't have a good answer for the judge isn't God. If you don't have a good answer for the judge is going to say, you sign this and you have to pay up. Your better job is to plead insanity. That's what I meant. Because that's taking responsibility. You can't say, I was tricked, I was fooled. Really? Because we have Akashic Record video of you agreeing to this. You can't go, I never heard of Akashic Record. It's... The negative soul contracts will seem like things that have the biggest impact. But that's because they hurt. They're kind of intense, so don't be intimidated. The last couple things I'm going to share, karmic contracts or soul contracts are going to seem somewhat hard to break. They're stored in the Akashic Records, and see, you're in trouble. The Akashic Records are the records of all things. You're going to find, when somebody's pulling on you, and you're trying to be free or whatever you're wanting to do, and something's pulling you, whether it's a legal contract with a record label because you're an artist musician, or it's an emotional contract and somebody just keeps calling you when you're trying to be done with them, even if it's an emotional pulling, when those things are happening, unconscious to you, psychically their soul is holding up an Akashic record saying, you told me you'd never leave. You told me you would always love me and accept me. You told me that till death do us part, etc. They're holding up Akashic records so you don't have an easy way out. Not without taking responsibility and pleading insanity. Because the records are there. You can't pretend they're not there. If you try to fight the truth of the records there, you can't win. Which is why people feel so exhausted with this concept of soul contracts. These records are stored in what's called your seed atom, held in your soul, in your heart center. That's another conversation, but something called the seed atom, your records are in there. They're in the Akashic records, they're in the seed atom. They're even stored in your chakras, believe it or not. Each chakra has some different records in it. Genetic memory, cellular memory. I mean, it's like turn left, turn right, go up, go down. The records are everywhere. Against you, seemingly. Responsibility, plead insanity, and practice forgiveness. And then you're not needing to tear them up emotionally, I'm going to be done, want to be done, because that means you're invested, you're hurt. There's this point where you just hold them up and say, I plead insanity. You toss them up, they don't even come crashing to the ground, they disappear. Because someone woke up. And then you say, I'm going to I'm going to choose the only contract that I am as God created me. Now you're aligning with a contract above all contracts. It's where somebody has been fighting over something linear on planet Earth, and someone comes swooping in with a contract that was written before that, that's greater than that, and holds all the weight. Center into God is how you're clearing this stuff. Don't try to center into God and not practice responsibility and forgiveness, but center into God. That's my new contract. Not only am I having my contracts dispersed through love and forgiveness, I'm having a new contract written, and it's I am as God created me. And sometimes, guys, you're going to end up still in court over that lease rental agreement that you're fighting over, and it's a drag, but that's what they do on earth. You do your best. Responsibility, insanity, forgiveness. Center into God and say, be with me while I go in there. Don't expect that that means you always win. Center into God and go into your court discussions about rental agreements or whatever you have to do. You go in and talk about your vows and your marriage certificates, and you go and center into God and not acquiesce and just hold your center. Don't expect you're always going to win linearly, but know that win or lose, I'm done. Have the same center as Nelson Mandela. Although you put me in prison, you have no power over me. As Viktor Frankl, you put me in Auschwitz, you have no power over me. Those people are done with any such contracts, although they look like they're bound in some way. It happens in here first. So how do you know when contracts are seemingly faded or gone or released? You start to feel there's less sting. They have less weight, you know. The frequency of how often the occurrences happen starts to lessen. How often somebody's pushing and pulling. They see that they can't get to you. It's a funny thing because you can almost see it in their face when they realize you woke up. Boo! Boo! Nothing. You know, it's really strange. They do whatever, and there's nothing here for them to push and pull. Then you know you're getting it. You're no longer, and you're also no longer practicing the behaviors that you were in. You're no longer acquiescing as much. You're no longer reacting the same. All of it starts fading away. So keep this in mind as I'm coming towards a close here. You have soul contracts. If you're on earth, you can say, no, I don't. You know, come on. I mean, that's like, nah, you know, I can't hear you, la, la, la. You know, that doesn't work for soul contracts. You have them. You're here. You have a soul and you're on earth. You're on earth because you have a contract to be here. So be here. And some people say, I wish I didn't have to be here. Thanks for sharing. But you're here. So show up. Show up. What if my contract is to not be here? What? You are here. So now that means you don't like the contract of having to be here. If I were you, I would show up, complete the contract, and show up. And then you'll be released by whatever dragged you here, you know, to make you need to fulfill it. And there's this thing that Buddha said. It's about the word desire. People would say, why do we incarnate? Buddha said, desire. And people went, oh, I knew it. Desires are bad. Buddha said you shouldn't have any desires. Don't look at a person and go, oh, now you're having to come back. Because of desire. What Buddha said was, it's an irresistible desire to be here. In other words, if you have lessons you believe you need to learn, not God thinks you need to learn. If you have lessons you think you need to learn, you will be irresistibly drawn here. He meant desire as in a magnetic attraction. An irresistible attraction. Whose attraction is it irresistible? It's yours. You think you need something to complete, so you're drawn here. There's teachers out there that tell people, you know what you need to do? You need to start picking and choosing which contracts you like. They're already here based on your unconscious desires or attractions. You know, it's not going to work for you just to think you can control it all when you're not even conscious of all these things. So, I need to say goodbye to these things. I need to bid farewell. Each and every day, I can see my contracts because they're things that I'm pulled, seemingly you could say, irresistibly to, or something keeps repeating. If it keeps repeating, maybe there's something there, like a contract. How do I complete it? Do it, don't do it, and consider it done. Write the things down. Write down the things that don't feel quite right to you. You can't just throw a tantrum and I want this and not that. You have to heal what you don't want as well. Some people will say, don't think about what you don't want, only create what you do want. Then you're building on quicksand because what I don't want are my hurts. And if I try to get what I want and put it together and build that new house on the quicksand of my hurts, it's going to sink. Heal and rebuild. Heal and rebuild. But people, just because you're done, the other people that were involved might not be done, but that doesn't mean you have to get pulled into it. A good example of this would be a guy named Adolf Hitler. Adolf Hitler was once an emperor, a king in an ancient country, okay, an ancient land. And he possessed the Israelites as slaves. The slaves were released and he hated them. So when he comes back, he takes the Jews, as they call them, Israelites, and he tries to exterminate them. He has a hatred that nobody can understand for them. It's because I had you people, you were my slaves, you got away and you were mine. I'm going to get you this time. Now, he could have actually healed that. And if they had any particular lessons that they felt they needed to learn, they would have had to hire somebody else. He had the right to clear that and he didn't. You follow? With your own people, your own folks that are in these contracts, and they're all contracts. We can wish they weren't there, but we're all in this somehow. Because people think they're flawed, they think they have lessons to learn. So A Course in Miracles is going to tell you all of your karmic lessons and all your soul contracts are still based on one inaccurate, false premise that you're flawed and you have things to learn. All you have to do is accept you're not flawed. The contracts start to disappear. So if I stand up and say, I'm not flawed, it doesn't happen like that. You have to now prove it. How? Because when you start experiencing those karmic contracts, you don't react to them and get them in ink again. They go through a shredder. Stop taking them and re-signing them. So when they call and say, hey, can we get together again? That same old relationship. Thank you, no. I'm good. Don't contact me again because we're done. Click, done. They call again, block the number. They call again, call the authorities if you have to. Be done. If you do it with hatred, you're not done. But practice being done. You can't just say it. You have to practice it. Because psychically, that's what puts it into the Akashic Records as your new truth. Energetically, I feel complete. Take a few centering breaths. Draw in the feeling. You cannot release yourself from soul contracts if you're not willing to release everyone else from theirs. Am I really willing to be free? Am I really willing to be free? I want to be free of my contracts. Okay, but then you have to be willing to free everyone else. Are you willing to do that? You can say yes, but it means also you'll stop talking about them and blaming them. Can you do that? Everyone become aware of one or two what appears to be patterns in your life that will let the Holy Spirit of God, the Divine Mother, help us determine whether these are good examples of soul contracts. One or two comes to mind. Patterns, possibly contracts. These contracts might not make any sense today. They might not feel good today. We can own that. That's okay. Be honest about it. If only a positive contract comes to mind, that's okay too. But preferably one or two that you would think are challenging. And imagine your mind, your soul, your consciousness being drawn way back before you were born. And on a soul level, you're able to be asked, in what way might this be a contract that you, even if insane at the moment, thought it was a good idea? Why and how might this have been a good idea? Why would your soul have ever been convinced that this would somehow serve a purpose for you? And be open to it. Something you would learn, a lesson you would learn, or something you needed to heal. And let it come to you. And your guide is the Divine Mother. She stands behind you right there. She's right there supporting you. And says, there's a part of you, honey, that thought that at the time. Would you be open to a different kind of a contract? Meaning a different belief system to carry you through? Yes, I would. And try to hear a statement that she or the Holy Spirit would rather you have come in with. And then believe that you can have that now. Feel it being downloaded from Spirit down in through the top of your head into your consciousness, being rewired in your brain and in your mind. It downloads into your heart and soul, and you absorb it in your heart and soul as thoroughly and vividly as possible as a truth. The contract only reflected or represented my inability to have accepted this other option at the time. Fine. I'm choosing differently now. And it downloads, lastly, imagine every cell in your body, just like musicians in an orchestra, each being told the song. Follow this key, this note, and so on. And it downloads into every cell. And all the cells of the body are singing in harmony. They're feeling it. They're singing, peace on earth and goodwill to man. Today is the moment of the birth of Christ in this owner of this body and soul. Nice. All the cells singing hallelujah. My new contract is all based on I am as God created me. And I choose/will to be the Christ on earth. That's my vow. And so it is. Soak that in, and gradually come back to the room. Take your time with it. Gradually, good. Remember, how? Different things can help you with this. If this didn't connect with how to reprogram those things, find something that works for you. Forgiveness, number one. Retrospection exercise at the end of each day. Visualize things that didn't go well. Visualize them differently. Like that conversation that turned into an argument. Visualize it being a more blessed conversation so that the mind starts reprogramming and saying goodbye to old reactions and whatnot. Do cord cutting exercises or rituals. Do the burning bowl at the end of a year. It's not the end of the year, but I already did mine, you know. You'll purge some things out when you're going through the dark night of the soul. That's just another way. Ride them out with no reaction. Don't give reactions to what seems like soul contracts. Then they kind of dissipate. That's what Buddha was saying about these things come around again. Don't react to them. And then they sort of burn out on their own because there's nobody feeding them. So, and like I said earlier, and also try not to create any more. It's one thing to say, you know, I'd like to be done with karma. Also, just kind of dedicate yourself to not doing it more. Try not to sign any more contracts. Just pretend Mercury's in retrograde all the time. And don't sign any new contracts and don't buy any electronic equipment. No. Thank you guys for your time and patience.